Hello, everybody. We are live, in fact, live streaming this meeting. Welcome, everyone, to the 92nd Warsaw JS Meetup. Thanks. And that means we're getting closer and closer to that 100th meeting, which I can't wait for, because I'm also closer and closer to my 100th birthday. Yay! Today we're competing with the weather. So it's nice weather outside, so I was a little concerned that we wouldn't be able to attract you, to pull you inside. And I see that some of you are dedicated, and we're really, really happy to have you here today. Let's see. Our organizing team would be Piotr Gentara, who everyone knows. Thank you. Gabriela Chuha, who is not present today. However, I remember Gabriela. And Maciej Machniewski. Hello, Maciej, wherever you are. We also have our, what? She's remote. Hey, Gabriela, nice to see you, nice to see you. We miss you. Our tech team is sitting here. They're helping to make sure that everything goes well. And that would be Pavel Raknio and Luisa Haas, who I adore. Luisa knows I adore her. We also have a great team of volunteers, including Anna Lukyanova. I saw her earlier. She's here somewhere. Konrad Zikoński, Wen Yao Lin, and Anastasia, Hrunova. Because without some volunteers, and by the way, we're always looking for volunteers, without the help of the volunteer team, none of this would be possible. What is Warsaw JS? It says here, word for word, Warsaw JS exists to support both professional and novice software developers within the IT community. We intend to accelerate the process of education by sharing our knowledge and experience. And folks, I want to tell you, that's why I'm here. When I saw that there was a group of people who were willing to share their experience and knowledge, I said, I'm all for it, because it could be very different. There are a lot of people who become very wise and clever, and they keep all the information for themselves so that they think they're going to become more wealthy. Here we have a great environment to really share our knowledge and experience, and also to network. So I'm happy to see that. Our mission statement is, okay, Berlin Code of Conduct. Does anyone know what that means? No. You're clueless. First of all, is anyone here for the first time? Oh! Whoa, welcome everybody who's here for the first time. The Berlin Code of Conduct says that we are kind and considerate in our language and behavior toward each other. That means no abusive language or conduct toward another individual, regardless of religion or bad taste in clothing or gender or for any other reason. We are dedicated to everyone being kind to each other, and anyone who is found not to obey that code will be asked to leave immediately, and I will help. Okay. We are close to 6,000 members, 5,966. Why don't we just say 6,000? Yeah, this is a great group. 6,000 members for Warsaw JS. You know, I mean, give or take a few. And that means this is still a growing community. And again, I'm proud to be with you. If you want to visit our website, this is WarsawJS.com. Today's meetup is going to be sponsored by CallStack, Daft Code, Evolution, Fresha, PackHelp, PostClick, Prisma, Sumo Logic, Tidio, and you know already, and Xbang, yes, and I'm really proud to also be a part of their team. We will have a contest today if anyone is interested in winning a 100% license for a JetBrains, wait, 100% discount for a JetBrains license. We have enough time, we will have enough time for 3 lightning talks after the regular talks, scheduled talks. And so if you get up the nerve or you want to win this license badly enough, we encourage you to give a 5-minute lightning talk. We'll have room for 3 people to be able to participate. Okay, our scheduled speakers today, finally, for meetup number 92 are, in order, I hope, Daria Hemmerling, and the title of her talk is going to be, Can the Sickness Be Heard in the Voice? Can the sickness be heard in the voice? Oh, that's going to be a lightning talk, I see. And then we have Zachary Milonas, and he wants to, the title is Hiring engineers, should we live code in interviews? That's a very intriguing topic. Let me read that again. Hiring engineers, should we live code in interviews? What does anyone think? We'll find out what he has to say. Yeah, probably a bad idea, right? And Mikołaj, Olszański, dependency injection in JS, sweat, tears, and hacks. I just like the word hack. I love to say it, hack. Are there any hackers in the room? Don't be shy, don't be shy. You're all hackers, I know that. And finally, we have Artur Zochniak, and his title is Visual Reverse Engineering. Visual Reverse Engineering. So, get ready and hold it down. And I imagine that the lightning talk we're going to hear first is from Daria Hemmerling, and please welcome her to the podium.
Thank you.
5 minutes after.
I'll do my best.
5 minutes she has. Exactly 5 minutes.
Oh, don't do that. No pressure.
No pressure. Just 5 minutes.
Please.
Luisa, is there the slide? Okay.
It works. So, hi everybody. It's a pleasure to be invited to this talk. And Daria Hemmerling, working as a software engineer at a soft-serve company and a Yosh AI, as well as I'm the assistant professor at IGH, University of Science and Technology in Krakow. So today I came to you from Krakow, traveling by train in the morning. And in my expertise, I specialize in the voice and speech processing. And I wanted to share with you why I feel very motivated to study this and to actually explore it for about 15 years already. The speech actually is the easiest mean of the communication. So wherever you go, most of the people speak in different languages, but based on the speech, you can diagnose the patient and discriminate the emotions, for example. So you can recognize if someone is stressed or someone is relaxed, if someone is even tired. But also what you can recognize if someone has flu or if someone has blocked nose. But also what is very interesting is that also we can recognize different diseases like arteriosclerosis. Do you know what is arteriosclerosis in English? This is the heart disease, a very common one, which is caused by the small yellow cells going around your veins. So the blood velocity goes slower and slower. In the end, it blocks your heart, and in the end, you might die. So what recently was very interesting is that we can also diagnose it with the voice. But to do that, firstly, in the research, we need to correlate the phonetic acoustic results and the clinical description of the diagnosis and its progression. So what we do firstly in the software recognition is that we do the binary classification to detect the disease. And furthermore, we can use some regression tasks to perform the disease monitoring. But for whom? Actually for everyone, starting from ourselves. As we use the smartphones, we talk every day, we share lots of information about our state, about our feelings, about what we do and what we cannot do actually at the same time. So this information might be very useful for the doctors, so on the other side of the border, as well as for the patients. So if you already suffer from some disease, you would like to know if you're getting better, if you cannot do it by yourself. So what I've done in my life is I created a software which can do the global screening. And the performance is that for men, it can recognize perfectly if someone starts having flu or having some laryngeal diseases or other diseases. The software actually includes around 140 different diseases, which is really cool because those are very global diseases. But for women, some of the patients were classified wrongly. But anyway, the result is 99.9%. So in my... Thank you. So it's been tested already on 1,400 people, and hopefully will be also available somewhere for the global population. But what really interested me during my research was the Parkinson disease, which is the neurodegenerative disease, which is mostly familiarized with the shaking. So if we had the software which could monitor the disease progression, which is very, very complicated, and let the patients know if the medicine worked or you should come back to the doctor, would be really, really desirable. But also what interests me in my research is the connection between the augmented reality, those glasses that you put on your head and you can see the real environment, and also, in addition, the digital world. So, for example, I can plot a digital person in front of me and still see the room. So what I want to do is to connect the results from all the sensors that are put into the Googles, and correlate them with the knowledge that I already have about the clinical description about different diseases. So based on the augmented reality, which is going to be actually used more and more often by us, like virtual reality, I hope in the future, we could also monitor more multimodal data about ourselves, actually. So actually, just one statement. I don't know if you're calculating the time, but I wanted to let you know that beside the smartphone tech,
You can have 1 more minute. Go.
Okay.
Go.
So the addition just to the smartphone technology using the augmented reality enables us to monitor how we behave, so how we move, how we speak as well, what we see and how we move our eyes, what we put attention to. So we have lots of information. Thank you.
Wow. Not bad, not bad. Hello. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello. Yeah. Don't go anywhere yet. Does anyone have any questions? I'm going to come and bring the microphone to you if you have any questions for our speaker. First you and then you. Yes.
That's impressive, I can say. And I have a question about how the room and the microphone affects the result of the screening, because I can imagine that, for example, an echo in the room can affect how we really see the problem by the model. And how can that be solved?
Yeah, what I've done for the last year at the Yosh company, we recorded people with 8 different microphones and also in different environments, starting from the soundproof room and ending in the gallery. Mm-hmm. And we compared which actually the software which doesn't work at which step. So I have already experience in using different devices with different microphones in different environments. So for example, I might say that the iPhone technology really wins everything. And it's very similar to Sennheiser microphones quality, which is really impressive. But this is done because the iPhone technology has lots of microphones inside, at least 8. So, there's a matrix of microphones that we can remove the noise quite easily. But still, it is very difficult to recognize the person in the gallery. I cannot say about the disease detection actually in the gallery, as the signal is very, very noisy.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
It's really very impressive. I'd like to ask if you need some previous sample, because you were indicating that in some cases we can see the progression of the disease, for example. But let's say that, I don't know, you pick a random person from the street and just run the test on him.
Yeah.
Will it find the disease?
Should. It should. Thank you for a great question. So first step in creating the algorithms is to get the data. This is the most important, to have the most varied data as possible. And then it's the testing part. So we have also some tricks in machine learning and artificial intelligence, how to test the algorithms if they work on limited data. But we also have the algorithms to modulate a little bit data, so to manipulate their quality and some parameters. But in the end, we end up with the testing in real environment. Did I respond it? No. So whenever if we go to the street where there are the cars, maybe you ask it about the environment.
No. Maybe I'll rephrase the question. Yeah. So does the software work much better when, for example, you have a sample of my speech from 5 years ago and you compare it with my speech today? Or would it work as well for detecting disease if I just give you the sample of my voice today? You know, there's of course a chance of a startup when you have like a when you collect the cells, the original embryonal cells, maybe you should also collect the voice at the early stage of people's life, so you can always compare it.
Yeah. I mean, I work with the voice, so if we had historic data, we can compare it, and this is what I do in the Parkinson disease. That's why we can monitor and predict the treatment, actually. So, for example, the Parkinson disease has some floating. It's called changing in on and off state. So sometimes the medicine, if it's too big dose, the symptoms of the disease appear too much. So you have to change the dose in this case. But changing the dose procedure actually is seen at home already, not at the doctor's office. So that's why we want to predict if the medicine works after 30 minutes, for example. And after 30 minutes, you cannot see the symptoms of the disease, honestly. So having the voice and knowing the prediction, we can predict.
Next question.
All right. First of all, thank you for working on problems like that. This is amazing and impressive. Thank you very much. And my question is maybe a silly one. How soon is it going to be better than humans at predicting the disease? What do you think?
I have no idea. I think the human knowledge is the priority for us, and we want to be the same right now as the human can be. But what we do with the physicians is that we support them. We don't want to exclude them from the diagnostic part. So we can only help them, but I don't eager to change them instead of the virtual machine or augmented machine.
Thank you very much. Give her a big hand, everyone. One question before you go. Thank you so much. One more question, because for years I've been visiting these doctors and they can't seem to find out what's wrong with me. So I'm wondering if you would be able to diagnose and tell me what's going on. No, I would like a private consultation. It's a fascinating presentation, really. Yes? Thank you. Looking forward to meeting with you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Great talk. Really unexpected as well. Hello, 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 hello. All right, that was really, really informative. Very interesting, this technology. 8 microphones in the iPhone technology. Did anyone know that before? Nope. Had no idea. What a sophistication. I thought it was just, just like a wire with something, I don't know. Something attached. All right. And we'll be right with you with this next announcement. Announcements, yes? Yes. By the way, once more, let's give a big thanks to Piotr Gentara for organizing this meetup. Because, yes, in fact, no, he organizes and disorganizes. The end effect, though, is organization. I mean, come on. It's working. It's working for you. I'm really very, very happy to be standing next to you. That's correct. And so, our next talk will be given by Zachary Milonas, and the title of his talk will be, Should We Do Live Coding During an Interview? I think that was the title, yes? Doesn't sound like good advice to me. I'm very interested to hear what he might have to say. Zachary, would you? Come on, welcome. Welcome, give him a big welcome, everyone.
Hello, everybody. Awesome to be here.
Can you see the slides? Can you see it still? Luisa, can you see it?
Okay, can I use the clicker? I can. Yeah. Okay. Hi, everybody. So I'm going to be talking about should we do live coding interviews This is a topic that is like much of a debate for me, and I think for everybody that is in this space, because you might not want to participate in live coding interviews because it's too stressful. But on the other hand, as I've been on the other side of the table as well, it is also really stressful to actually conduct these, because you really have to focus heavily on how the candidate's performing and also not to scare them away from the job you're trying to have them take. So I'd like to firstly maybe say who I am, just for a little bit of a background. I've been a software engineer for a couple of years now, and I work mostly with TypeScript right now. And I've also, as a software engineer, participated in interviews. And I've been interviewer and interviewee. As many of us, I kind of tried to get a job in many different places. And I've been part of the process for my previous employer and my current employer, which is Evolution, a sponsor of today's. Like I've been a part of the process, which was just soft skills questions, hard skill questions, but also part of the processes where we actually do live coding interviews. And I think it's really important to kind of distinguish the two and kind of see the pros and cons of each, because like you might see the answer come up later. Should we do live coding interviews? But I think there is no clear answer. So this kind of spoiling the whole presentation, but
It depends.
yeah, the answer could be it depends. So, well, firstly, why would we want to focus on live coding in general? Why can't we just have people come in and answer a couple of questions? Well, it's a problematic because in like recent times, there's a lot of resources online, and like a lot of people are just learning the answers to a lot of questions. Like if you go to any kind of interview where we have no live coding and just asking questions about JavaScript, you'll probably get asked about what is the event loop. You'll probably get asked about like how do promises work. And these kind of questions are okay, but at some point the candidates just learn the answers by heart, and you can actually dig in and make sure that they actually understand the topic. But even then, they can kind of try to, if they're good like at soft skills questions, they can actually try to convince you otherwise. Yeah, you should just hire me because I'm really good at talking and discussing things. So this way, they kind of talk you over. And what we do in our job, well, it is talking a lot, but we also do coding. And there's a big part of the job as software engineers that involves writing some code. So why not do live coding? So we come into to an interview and you actually have a task in front of you and you have to kind of solve some kind of a problem. And that's how we kind of got into live coding. But quickly thereafter, there was like probably a lot of online discussions that you might have seen, that people are saying, oh, live coding is bad. It's really stressful, especially whiteboard interviews where you come in and you have to do an algorithm on a whiteboard and you're not in front of a computer. Well, this is completely disconnected from what you do on your day-to-day job as a software engineer. So there's a lot of problems with live coding in general right now, especially when we're in the online world. As an interviewer myself, I've had a lot of technical issues, VS Code not working properly for the candidate or for me, and we have to still make them share the screen, which is kind of problematic because you can not always see stuff. So the technical issues aside, you still rely that the candidate that you present the problem with is actually never seen that problem before. So kind of the same thing as with asking questions. They can still know the answer. You give them a fizz-buzz question, if you ever encountered one of those, and they will just write down the answer in a couple of seconds. And you have to still rely that the candidate has like some line of thinking. And in a lot of problems with where you give a candidate a coding task, you kind of rely on a candidate knowing some kind of a quirk or some kind of thing that will click for them so they can answer this. And a lot of times, if given a time frame and kind of a stressful situation where they tell you, oh, you have to solve this task, And after you solve it, maybe we'll give you a job. But if you don't solve it, your chances go really, really down. Then given these stress levels, a lot of times I've seen candidates, and being a candidate myself, you just get too stressed and you're not able to perform to the best of your abilities. So kind of from the both sides, it's a lose-lose situation. So I actually was in one of these interviews where I was a candidate and I was given some tasks. And at the beginning of the interview, I was actually told that there are going to be 3 tasks, which is quite a lot, and it was supposed to be like 2 hours. And the first one I should be able to do. The second one might be a little bit harder, but the third one no candidate has ever done. And after that, I was really wondering, like, what are they trying to achieve? Do they have some kind of problem that they want me to solve and do it for free during an interview? Or are they actually looking for candidates to do the job? Because I'm not going to be solving really hard problems. I'm going to be probably copying and pasting some React components from one place to another. So after this interview, I actually, at the end of it, we had some time for questions, and I actually asked them, what do you want to achieve in the live coding? And they said, yeah, we know it's kind of bad, but this is the best we can do. And they kind of agreed with me that the point of this interview is stupid, but in the end, they ended up rejecting me. So I guess win-win, because I wouldn't accept the offer anyway. So this is kind of like what live coding would look like. You performing on a stage, you're in front of people, and this is not how the day-to-day job looks like. The perfect live coding environment would be when you're pair programming with somebody, and the interviewer is like your partner that you can ask questions to, and they can tell you, yeah, so you can use this library and this. So when we do live coding, we usually let the candidates, or always let the candidates use any kind of Google or anything they would use in their day-to-day job. And it goes okay, because if the candidate is brave enough, they can ask us questions, so not to solve the task for them, but often we can point them in the right direction if they ask the right questions. So this is somewhere in the vicinity of something that could work as an interview in that sense. But then, like, we have this part where we are the interviewers and we are here with the candidates for 2 hours. And as you may encounter, hiring is really hot right now. So there's a lot of open positions, and hiring is also a big bottleneck for a lot of companies. So you got to understand that if you have some engineers, then you have to pay them for like 2 hours to sit in an interview, and then pay them additional hour, or just have them spend an additional hour on evaluating the candidate. And before that, they have to prepare for the interview. They have to maybe go to an interview boot camp. They should screen the CV. Well, screening CVs is usually HR's job, but a lot of things come engineers' way. And in the end, the live coding part of the interview is also costly for the company. So we're still in this situation. So live coding doesn't make sense in general. Like, who would want to do live coding? And then you gotta think. So like, the interviewer is actually there, and they can see like the candidate solving something. And if there is actually good live coding interview, let's imagine that for a second, then actually you might have a situation in which the interviewer might not focus on the candidate solving something or getting to a completion, but it might be around how the candidate behaves when they encounter something that they didn't see before, when they encounter a more difficult problem, when, for some companies, when they have a deadline that is approaching, how do they behave then? And this is an interesting point, because I would say that just like when police pulls you over and they tell you that everything you're gonna say can be used against you, the same goes with live codings, because it's not everything you type, but it's everything you say, everything you don't say as well, that is gonna work for or against you. So live coding is just another way of having an interview where you kind of give a candidate some kind of a glimpse into how the work is gonna go. And you see how they react. and you try to make them kind of a little bit uncomfortable, but not to the point where they will not accept your offer. So, so we as interviewers doing live coding interviews, we're actually also having a kind of a big ask from our employers to actually see what the candidate is performing like. And a lot of times after a live coding interview, even if the candidate implemented a perfect solution, or close to perfect, no, there is no perfect solutions. We oftentimes recommend on rejecting the candidate based on a culture fit or the way they kind of behaves. For example, we might test the candidate. How do they react when I suggest them something? Usually suggest something right, something that will pull them in the right direction. And if the candidate, for example, behaves in a way that they don't want my help, or they are kind of dismissive, it's a signal. It's a signal for me as an interviewer that this candidate is maybe a little bit too stubborn. Maybe, hopefully, it's not based on just one question and response, but that this candidate has some soft related things, soft skill related, that we should be on lookout for. So we get a lot of applicants. We do a lot of interviews. This is not the numbers from my employer, but it's just to show that we go for a lot of interviews. And in these interviews, we really want to focus on like getting the best candidates. So live coding gives us a metric. And we screen resumes right now. They're usually automatically screened. And you have to gauge somehow the skill, because it's not the matter of how many keywords you put in your CV. It's the matter how you're gonna perform in the job. And sometimes you would employ somebody for like a week and see how they do, but nobody would like to work for free for a week. So there are some problems to that. So there is really like, maybe it's a necessary evil to do live coding, but maybe it is not. We'll get to that. We love KPIs. This is what corporate loves. So you have a key performance indicator. That means you can turn just all of the candidate into a single metric. And we would do that. So we can have some decision about whether we should hire somebody or not. And it is kind of predictable that the way you do live coding is that did the candidate solve the problem or did they not solve the problem? And this way, we can either hire them or not hire them. This is a bad way to do live coding, of course, because it ignores a lot of things that I already mentioned before. But it's always much easier for some kind of like a corporate high-level executive who's making the hiring decisions to see that we have this single metric that will help us determine if the candidate is a good fit or not. And with soft skill related questions that are often elaborate essays in the evaluation from the interviewer, you cannot boil it down to a single number. So it's bad. And live coding, there's a single number, how tests are passing is good. So unfortunately, that's why we often end up with live coding interviews, especially in bigger companies that have the capacity to do it. And this is pain. This is pain for interviewers, but especially for the candidates, because then you have an hour spent in the evening or in the morning where you really stress. And I feel like the same I feel on an oral exam during the studies. So one thing I didn't mention, I study law, and they have a lot of oral exams there. And this is like the most stressful thing. And to me, somebody watching you live code, it's really stressful. Why would we do that? It's just pain. And you need help. And there's a lot of pain. And I hope that there's like something else we could do. Should we do live coding? So we have a solution. We might have a solution. We want to gauge how the candidate behaves given a problem and how do they arrive at a solution. And we want to see their problem-solving skills. And what do we do in programming jobs other than writing code? We do a lot of reading code and reading Stack Overflow, of course, as well. And so we could test people on Googling skills, but that wouldn't get us far. but we could make them read, and then maybe somehow we could gauge how they solve problems. So I don't know why I put this here, but oh yeah, I remember now, sorry. After you read code, you often want to usually find the person who wrote it and do that to them. So be kind of aggressive towards them, because oftentimes you find some legacy code that was written 3 years ago and you don't understand what it is. There's no documentation, and the only comment message there is fixes after code review. And then you find out that the commenter was you, but it was you 3 years ago. And it might sound like a meme, but it actually happened to me several times. And you should watch out for it. So never find somebody, never be mad at somebody that left their code. You always should do the Boy Scout rule, so always leave the code better than you found it. Anyway, back to the reading code part. We read code. So how I imagine we could do it. So we could just think about some alternatives to live coding. We could quiz people, for example, and we can do like, what is the event loop, and quickly answer. What is promises, and you quickly answer. And this way we have some quizzing done, and maybe we can check off that they know this stuff. But that doesn't get us far. And some part that I really like and I really enjoy is having a discussion. So one technique I tried to employ during interviewing was actually not necessarily quizzing people, but asking their opinions. And through opinions, I could kind of understand if they actually worked with some technology and if they understand their technology. Because if somebody says that something is really bad and it should not be used, like take any technology you developed in the last few years, and they just say really a lot of bad things about it, usually that means they don't understand it fully, or they don't understand the application, because usually it means they just haven't encountered a problem that required this specific solution, because usually there is a right tool for the job. And recently I've been asking candidates, like, how do they enjoy TypeScript? Where do they see purpose of TypeScript? And this kind of gives you an idea on how the developer interacts with code, how do they think about developing some features. And you can also talk about like, how did you debug something? How did you go through some kind of a problem or some kind of an alert that popped up? And how did you deal with that? So there's also something that I see could be a future of live coding, sort of. It's code review. So instead of giving our candidates live coding during the process, you would ask them to go through somebody else's code, which is what we do often, and leave comments. And from these comments, you can often gauge on how the developer communicates. Because if there's one single skill that is more important than knowledge of framework, knowledge of language, is the communication skill in a role as a software engineer. And it's really important that you communicate clearly and kind of follow the Berlin Code of Conduct. You are not not dismissive of anybody's ideas, and you're asking more questions than telling somebody that he's outright wrong. So I think there is a big possibility for interviews to kind of change into a code review, where you go for some code and then you ask them to leave comments, then you go through the comments, maybe then you ask the candidate to refactor the code, or maybe not. And then you can see like how the developer thinks. You're not asking them to come up with something. You're asking them to do something that is often the biggest part of somebody's work. Because I don't know about you, but if you're in the software engineering field, you often have these days where you have more code reviews than actual development. There's also a kind of a big possibility of using work samples. So GitHub Profiles are actually a thing. and some people are actually using them. And I gotta say, I've been in companies and I've been interviewing where we actually look at your GitHub profile when you provide it. And oftentimes, to decide whether we give homework or not, we we go through some kind of work sample that they have on their GitHub that they provide us. And this way we can kind of see, oh, how did they structure the project? How did they document something that they did in their own free time, or they contributed to some open source? This is, of course, a big limitation to a lot of people that are not kind of the passionate developers that do a lot of work outside of work. And of course, this only works with fraction of our candidates that actually work on their GitHub profile and their open source appearance. But if it works really well, because based on that, we can actually make a lot of assumptions that most of the times are actually true about how a specific candidate works through their code, how they structure things. And it helps us a lot because homework is the biggest factor in our candidates actually rejecting us. So oftentimes this is the biggest bottleneck of people saying, oh yeah, I'm gonna do homework, and 3 weeks later we have radio silence. I don't blame them. Homework is difficult. You have to spend time after hours, and often you're actually not do it to the best of your abilities because it's not during the job. If you do homework during the job, then yeah, that's fine. But you shouldn't be expected to do a lot of work before that they're not even going to use, because we always give the same homework to everybody. And also somebody can do homework for somebody else. So that's a problem. So these are the alternatives I listed. And I think some of them have a really big potential. But in the end, it's a matter of opinion of what should be picked, and it's a matter of match between a candidate and an interviewer on what style should be performed, because some people really perform well in live coding, and some people perform really well in quiz kind of interviews. So it also depends on what you're interviewing for. So we also tell ourselves that the situation of software engineering years is kind of special, and why do we even have this discussion of live coding or not? 1 minute, thank you. And I think the situation stems from that there's a lot of young workforce coming, and a lot of people that are actually starting their jobs without getting a degree first, which is really cool. And it's awesome that the barrier of entry is so low, but it's also ending up with a lot of problems in the interviewing space, kind of, where we had some kind of a format, we had some questions that we asked, but then everybody learned the answers to them. And how do we test them? So the situation is a little bit special, but not quite that, because I think you would find a lot of similar situation happening, a lot of different fields. So let's not think that we are so special. And lastly, kind of, I want to emphasize that I think resumes are not that important, because they're just a paper right now, and they're usually scanned automatically, and oftentimes your format is not working with them. So should we do live coding? It depends.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh.
Closing thought is that we're
1,
hiring
2.
in Evolution. So if you're a JavaScript, TypeScript engineer, please reach out. We're always looking for some great candidates. You might encounter me during an interview.
Is this a plug? This is a
plug.
basic advertisement.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before we ask questions, I want you guys to remember that these microphones are not just for us in the room, but also we have a live stream going. So it's important that your voice be registered by the microphone. So try to hold the microphone as close as possible. Thank you. Now, thanks to Zachary. I know that a live coding interview is basically a psychological evaluation, right? That's what it is. And I'm as skeptical as you might be. I have a question, quick question first. So this idea of actually the code that you're being asked to do actually being a problem that the company or the business has that they want to have solved, has that ever occurred in your experience?
I don't know, actually. I mean, most of the times live coding interviews I feel are just kind of out of the blue, and they solve some non-existent problems that is supposed to be algorithmic heavy. But in the end, you never know if they're not going to use it. Questions?
Yes, thanks for your presentation. I have three, I hope, quite quick questions. First, okay, so the question is, if person fixes the problem, but behaves, let's say, badly, should you hire him or her or not?
Well, in my experience, I would say that live coding is as much as the hard skills, it is also soft skills. So if they behave badly, I'm not sure how bad behavior would be described in an interview, but I imagine like being maybe a little bit too aggressive or a little bit arrogant. This is something I usually write down as a red flag during an interview, and I do put in my evaluation and then a decision. And yes, I think there is at least a 50-50 priority in terms of the behavior during the live coding and the coding itself.
Hi, maybe I misunderstood, but you said something that during the live interview, you somehow, evaluate candidates numerically and it gives you some KPIs. Did I get it right, or
yeah? So
if yes, so how do you measure that?
Yeah, so this way I wanted to kind of allude to the corporate law for the KPIs and the funnels. In general, the way I see it is oftentimes we would count, did the candidate solve the problem 1, or did they not solve the problem 0, or this would be a binary classification, not an indicator. But we would also kind of count how far did they get in solving the problem, not what approach they took. So if they solved it like halfway through, they had like half of the problem solved, if that's even measurable in any way, we would put it as a half higher in sort of this way.
Hi, thank you for your insights. And I have a quick question. Do you think in the future, since universities don't provide the screening necessary, do you think some kind of like third party or maybe a startup could solve screening and issues with homework?
As long as people are willing to do the homework, I think there is some market for that, definitely. If you have a startup in mind or you're starting one, then I would be happy to join. But I think the way forward is to make the processes shorter if possible, because sometimes the processes get too long and they also have a lot of difference in length. And you often have like an offer from one company, even though you started in the same on the same evening, you sent all the resumes, and then you have an offer from a company in a week, and the other wants to take 2 months to actually get you to an interview. So this is what we should work on, probably.
Thank you so much, everybody. Give Zachary another big hand. Very, are you coming? Very enlightening. Thank you. Very, very enlightening. Very, very enlightening. Oh, there I am. One of these microphones is not so good. I'm really that very informative. The whole idea of the psychological evaluation, and then also the fact that you mentioned that communication is key, and a lot of let's say programmers, developers could use some, let's say, improvement or development of their ability to communicate well. And I think it was a really informative talk. So next up. On the list, we're having a little conference here on the side. Don't mind them. Next up on the list is going to be Artur. We'll find out in a moment. That was really informative. Made me very skeptical. It's going to be Mikołaj. Okay, Olszański. Olszański. Thank you, because you know I'm blind. And the title of Mikołaj's talk is going to be... That's the title of your talk? Is it really? Oh my gosh. Wow, thank you for... Okay, thank you. Dependency injection in JS. Sweat, tears, and my favorite word, hacks. Please welcome to the stage, Mikołaj Olszański. Remember to hold this close.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, it's my second time here. Let me just put the timer so I'm not gonna be too late, you know. Just a clicker. Actually, this story about like code reviewing and reading your comments like really resonated. Like, who wrote this code? Who wrote this comment? Oh, it was me like 5 years ago. Oh my God. I even like was a story that I was thinking late night. What's like the most optimal strategy in battleships? You know, this game where you put like ships and you shoot one A1, B5. I was thinking, what's the most optimal strategy? And I like search it in Google. Yeah.
Could you hold the bar?
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you. Let me just try it here. All right, better. Thank you. Great. And I searched Google and I found like some Yahoo answers somewhere per the same question, and there was like a marvelous answer, like with a PDF, with computed like the mathematical probabilities, everything like well described, and was like amazing. And I discovered it was like me who asked this question like 5 years ago, and it was me who answered it. So yeah, like our brains are foggy, and this can happen. All right, so to the subject. This is my second time, and today I want to talk about dependency injection. And first of all, I probably want to ask you how many, like maybe let's do a quiz, like a warm-up. Who's using TypeScript? Great, okay. React. Vue. Okay, Angular. Okay, anything else? Great, great, great. All right, so I know that you can use your hand now. That's cool. Next question is, well, do you think you know what dependency injection is?
Yes.
Probably. Okay, good. So maybe you can I can show you something. Then maybe a question: have you like anyone you've like tried or heard of any dependency injection approaches in JavaScript or some libraries you know? Do you have some experience with that? All right. So I really hope I'm gonna share some experience, because my goal today is to share my experiences because well. I work at Backup as engineering manager, and we've been mainly responsible for, well, okay, I'm telling you what Backup is. What we do at Backup, we sell packages. So we're basically an interface to the old world of big printing houses. So a client wants like a package and he doesn't know what to do. He picks up the phone, calls to the printing factory, and they say, oh, you have to send us PDF in SMIC format. What's SMIC? What's SMIC, right? They don't know it. And what we do is provide like a simple interface for them to order packages. And the application grew in complexity, and we started to have this architectural issue. So my job at Backhelp is I basically do this editor. It's like an online tool. Let me, maybe it's gonna play the video. All right, so this is like a demo. And what you see here is a combination of like many layers of architecture. First of all, you have this 2D and 3D element. Like you see this like packaging. Then you have the React layer. The interface is powered by React. And then you have a lot of like custom business logic written in plain JavaScript, TypeScript, classes and instances and stuff like that. And you also have some glue code to merge and create interfaces between all those layers. And so this is the problem that we had, that this editor like grew in complexity, and it had like new approaches. For example, we see here the client side of the editor, but we also have the editor mode for our designers who create assets, and then you can just hit the buy icon, hit the buy button, and get this order to you delivered like in 12 days or something. So it's like simplifying the process for the clients. And we have this designer mode, what we call, and it doesn't really like require all those e-commerce elements related to like pricing, volume, stuff like that. And we had to like the application was growing, and we started to hit some architectural limits. And hence the dependency injection. So back to the point, dependency injection. So why bother? Because our app grew in complexity, and we had to find some solutions to make it like pretty and organized and lean and efficient and everything related. So yeah, this is like the architecture. There are like layers, and they need some order, and they need some order to work optimally. And there are some techniques to dependency injection. I will show some code, and we'll run pretty quickly through them, so pay attention. So what's dependency injection? Like the simplest form. It's, first of all, if you know solid, so like dependency inversion principle is like one of them. So basically the idea that you somehow provide the instances or tools or dependencies that the other part of the application needs. So for example, we were making import, you're basically like getting dependencies to the code that you need them. Or you, in constructor, you add arguments in your constructor. That's like a form of dependency injection. So it's somehow connecting the elements together. And formally, there are, I would group them generally into context-based dependency injection. So for example, when you do Windows something and like assign like some variable instance to a window and then reference it, it's like getting from a context. Or like global Node.js context. It's like you're getting your dependencies from the context, like process. If you're in Node.js environment, you're basically saying process.end.something. It's basically it's a dependency injection on that. If you're in React, you say use context. It's dependency injection based on the context. You climb up the root tree, and this is the context. So it's context-based dependency injections. Also, maybe like lump in some service locator pattern, but don't want to go there tonight. Also, there are techniques with setters and getters. So like public properties, where you can like put dependencies. For example, I'm going to reference an example here. So imagine you have some payment service that has one method, send money, and you want to log it. And you need a logger, and you want an instance of a logger. And when you're developing, you'll have a console logger. In your production, you might have some production, Sentry, Pino, whatever logger, Winston, Boolean, whatever you want, some production logger. And in test, you want some like, mock silent logger, right? So you depend on the interface and not on the some specific implementation. And you can like inject them via setters methods. And constructor-based injection, I think it's like a good classic, and it's like a safe default for most use cases. All right, let's go through them. So first of all, do you have this? All right, so we have here an interface. It's like a good start on an interface and not like on specific implementation. And there's like two mock implementations of the logging service. Then if we would do this in a context-based injection, we can have something like this. So we may have like it in a window or in a specific like, singleton thing, or some service locator like or a library like pattern. There we have like context here, and then we refer to the context in our class. So this is like one of the ways you can do it. The second way is you can have some like inject somehow during when the, for example, when the class like becomes an instance, you can somehow like inject it via public getter, or even directly in the so there are ways to like inject it after creation, instance creation. And then there is like a good classic, I would call like give it in a constructor. It's like one of the best, most rock solid, and most like recognized pattern, and it will play very nicely with all the TypeScript and all the static analysis with tests and everything. So this is one of the good classic, and I would recommend like using this one as your first option. So this is like the base, and yeah, so we depend on the interface, not on specific not on an implementation. And yeah, so this is the base example we're going to use, a payment service that has like one dependency of a logger. Right. Then, and dependency injection has like long roots. It comes from other more mature languages like, Java, C#, Objective-C, all the other good languages. The JavaScript, like the bad part and the good part. The JavaScript book is this thick, and the good part by Rockford is this thick. So from other languages, dependency injection is basically a solved problem, and the techniques are well known, and they work great. And basically, there are two techniques how they work. In Java, they work mostly on reflection API. So basically, the JavaScript VM knows what kind of instance and classes are there around, and then can like find them. In PHP also it works like that. And for example, in C#, the compiler, and the compile generates some code that basically does the same as reflection, so it's even more performant. And basically, it just solves the problem. It's not a problem in JavaScript. That's all. So for example, this is Java code. I'll explain what it means. Basically, we have like two classes, business logic. We define the business logic like lemon and orange. Then we have like a juicer. It depends via, in a constructor. It's like a constructor-based dependency injection. It depends on those instances. And then you create what's called like a container. In different languages, you call it the same, but the idea is always the same. You create some container, some zone, some instance, something to hold, to attach to your classes. And you create this container. Then you add those classes to this container. And then like a very cool thing happens. If you ask get component of a juicer class, the Java will know that the juicer needs the orange and the lemon types, and will find types of lemon juice and create those instances for you. And this is amazing because you, as a developer, you only have to declare your dependencies here in the constructor, and the VM and this Pico container, this dependency injection framework, will figure out how to create those instances for you. And this is like one of the best like implementations with this. So there are two distinct parts of this flow. First of all, you define your business logic. So it's like you write your code normally, you have your constructors depend on something. Then you have like step two, like wiring binding logic, where you basically say, okay, dear dependency injection framework, please look at those classes and they're somehow connected, and then figure out how to connect them. And then you as a user just write something like run my app, and everything like runs. So this is the Java holy grail. Let me check the time, okay. So what are like the real options when it comes to JavaScript? And it's like opinion part. First of all, use constructor injection as much as possible. It's probably the safest, most convenient. The TypeScript will be happy. It's easy to write tests. Don't use singletons, you'll kill your tests. So this is it. The second thing, yeah, this is the good pattern. The second thing is when it comes to like the dependency injection, manual dependency injection without a framework is the simplest and most preferable. So I'm gonna like make this example a little bit more complicated. So we still have our loggers, right? And let's have some OAuth service, user class, and like payment service class. So, and it becomes a sync. So what we need here is we define our business logic like this. We have some user data interface, an authentication system provides us with some user data, right? Then the user depends on a data type of user data that we have here and here. And the payment service needs a logger, you remember our logger, and the user instance. So it's like a pretty simple dependency tree. And it's really clear what depends on what. It depends on interfaces, not on implementations. Those classes are swappable. Pretty simple, straightforward to read. So this is your business logic. Then if you do like what we call manual dependency injection, or poor man's DI, sometimes it's called, you basically write code like this in your index.js file or something. You create an instance of a logger, depending on the environment, it's one or the other, right? Then you manually create the instance of an auth service, then you execute an async code, and it goes like you can read code. So this is simple, straightforward, readable. And this is a very good strategy, and I would recommend you to stick to it as long as possible, because it's readable, everybody can understand it, there are no issues with it. Then if you have some like growing pains, you might be tempted or want or need or have to use some sort of dependency injection framework or some more advanced dependency injection approaches. So this is my thing. I want to share my experience and like the pains and the gains and the tears and hacks and solutions, possible solutions, what I came through, so you don't have to. So for example, if you're using dependency injection framework in TypeScript, your code might look then something like this. So this is in WarsawJS, you like add some decorators that will be used by using reflect metadata API that might be eventually merged into JavaScript. Now we have like huge polyfill for that. If you do this and then like do this binding phase like here, like something similar like we had in Java, you do those bindings to some tokens, and then you can have kind of the same like experience like we had in Java. But there are like, so this is like a framework approach. So you see that you have to change your code profoundly and adapt it to a framework. And this is like, this is the downside of using a dependency injection framework approach. So if you want to use it, you really should think twice about it, because it will kind of pollute all your code. So it's kind of like you would have to extend all your classes in all of your code with the framework and make them dependent, make your business logic dependable on some weird framework. It's a weird trade-off, but you might have no other option. So my opinion, use manual DI as long as you can, because it's simple. But if you need more, and what are the frameworks out there? What are the pros and cons? How they're constructed? How do they work? And what's my experience with them? So I would go with some types. So some of them are built in, and this is actually great news. Angular and Nest.js have like a built-in dependency injection frameworks, and they're okay. If they're built in, they work, they provide value, they are like merged into their framework. It's okay, they're fine. It's acceptable to use them. I think that they're okay. Like not much comment there. The second is the one that rely on decorators. And if you're gonna search like JavaScript dependency injection framework, WarsawJS is gonna be like the first one to come. And probably the second most popular is Syringe by Microsoft. It's much better typed. Probably it's the same company that makes TypeScript, right? It's like the second class, and honestly, trust me, I have like npm installed probably 100 of them, of different like DI frameworks. So like can test them, look through them. So it's like classification. Then there are ones that do some weird, very tricky, weird, cool compiler hacks. Basically, they hack the either Babel or types compiler and try to extract information about the types, about the interface from them, and give you like dependency injection via that method. So basically like some compiler hacks. Or there are also ones that just read your source code, the Node.js ones. They literally like, you know, open your files, read them, parse the source code, parse the tokens, and try to guess what the dependency is. So there are like those kinds of frameworks. Then there is like property hacks. I think there's like a very nice I found like called typed inject. Basically, it does the same as decorators, but it uses JavaScript static properties instead of decorators, and kind of achieve the same result. It's a very good one. And there is like the last one, like manual DI on steroids, or on rocks, or on rails. How would you like it? It's a little bit different, but very useful. So built-ins are okay. Decorators. This is Inversify. Yes, I've told you about this. So basically, this is how your code is going to look after Inversify. And what's the problem with that? First of all, you'll have Babel config issues. Because first of all, you'll have to support decorators. And you know that the standard is changing. There are, I think, right now 4 or 5 competing standards. And this is going to be a mess if for your Babel config. Second, the dependency on decorators. You might not want it. It's not still in the core of the language. TypeScript decorators aren't compatible that are going to come to JavaScript. So it's going to be like a clash. So it's like a risk factor. Those decorator libraries, they don't support async flow. And guys, like, I don't know what they're thinking, but JavaScript is async. How the hell would you not add async as a core of your library that does dependency injection in an async language? It's insanity. And the saddest part is they don't work with like built-in default, how do you call them? Boilerplates, right? Like create React app, Next.js, stuff like that, because they don't have the built-in decorator support. But if you have like TypeScript, it kind of does. But then you have to depend on the reflect metadata and hack it into Babel. And then all your like setups you'll have to eject from create React app or provide some ugly hacks. And I wanted to once add decorators to Nest.js, and I spent like 5 or 6 hours. And I've been using Webpack for, I don't know, 8 years or 6, like from the first version when it was even Square, and I like couldn't do it. It's a waste of time. You can like spend too much time on like, you know, adding this support to your Babel. To Babel or like your Webpack config or rollup or anything. And so it's like the issue with them, with those libraries related to the dependent decorators and reflect metadata is that it's a heavy cost on your tooling, and it's like not easily to move them across projects, or because one project may use rollup, they may use Webpack, and they may be like not compatible. And they may use then different decorator standards, and you're gonna shoot yourself in the head with it. So this is a real risk. But if your flow supports it and you have reflect metadata and your Webpack is small, you can use them if you like this approach. So this is like one lump of them. Compiler hacks is basically what compiler hack is. It's the same as the Java code. I didn't want to like put too much code in here really to depth, but you know already this code, and you can write the same in TypeScript. And the library like called deepkit.io, and some of them can turn this kind of code like this into like a working code. But the risks are that, again, it's Babel and TypeScript config issues because they hack into the compilers. They don't work with the built-ins, and your code will be unique snowflake alien, and it will not work. Like other people don't know, it will be like a language hack that nobody knows why it works. So this would be like a very not really transparent. So those are the downsides. Property hacks, I think I like this really much, this approach, because what it does something like visible. It's not like, it's very explicit. You defined a property inject, and then you have some like related tokens, classes related to tokens. And this library will kind of provide you with like create the instances of the parent classes, not the parent classes, instances of those classes, and we'll inject them. It's a very nice library. This guy is like really smart. It's one of the best written libraries I've seen. Very well documented. The TypeScript code is really nice. So I would give it a try. And the downside is that you will kind of pollute your code with this inject thing. Is it 1 minute?
1 minute, yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. I thought I had like 30 minutes. That's 25. Okay. So spotty TypeScript, no native async support. And the last thing, you know this manual DI I've talked about previously, and I didn't like neither of those approaches, and I was staying in hospital, and I was like bored, and so I wanted to solve this problem like in the most elegant way I could, and I did something, and I wrote this like ATI library, and it has like ticks all the checkboxes. It doesn't need, I don't have time, so it doesn't like require any Babel hacks. It's like super type safe, and it supports async. It's just 1 kilobyte. It's friendly with all the starters, and it's really simple. If you're moving from the manual dependency injection code like this, that you probably might already have, into something like this, it's almost the same, and it supports async, and you basically get almost this Java-like experience, and includes async. So to summarize, takeaways from this presentation: use constructor injection. This is the lessons I've learned. Use constructor injections. It's a good approach. It works most of the time. Manual DI as long as you can, because dependency injection frameworks can be complex, and they can really come at price. And if you need DI framework, shameless plug, check ATI. It worked for me. It worked for the company. So thank you for your time.
Shameless plug, huh?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, we're trying to discourage people from plugging different companies because, as you know, we have prescribed sponsors for this event, and perhaps they would like to maintain their, let's say, authority or their ownership over the sponsorship. So if we can avoid these shameless plugs, it would be really helpful. Thank you very much for your presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Okay, I have some kind of rookie question, but you said we should use manual dependency injection as long as we can. But where is the point we should consider using some kind of framework or library?
It depends. Like personally, I would think, if you're starting to tangle with async code, if you really like too much asynchronous code, sadly, only as I know, like I've created literally hundreds of them. Only typed inject kind of supports async code, but it like breaks TypeScript compatibility, like TypeScript issues. It doesn't support them natively, but you can kind of hack them into or make like a PR to the library. It's pretty easy to add, but it will still have some issues with that. Still would have some issues. So if you need more, like if you work more with async code, you might want to use something like ITI. If you want to have some cool features like bundle split coding, you also might want to consider, because your code might become like too complex in this index.js file where you, because you will always have in those languages something like this binding phase I showed you with the Java code. Oh, here it is. So if this part becomes too complex and too convoluted, and it becomes like hundreds of lines of code and nobody knows what it's doing, it's time to move on to something more robust. Yeah, I think that would be like my breaking point.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So I'm curious, what are the main reasons you use dependency injection in your code? Because the first thing coming to my mind is to basically inject, plug fake services in your test. I think this is a great use case for dependency injection, and I mainly use this one. So I'm curious. I think there is more behind. There are more use cases. So are there any?
To me personally, in years of experience, it's about making the architecture as I'm not talking about the framework. First of all, about the constructor dependency injection. It's the simplest and most straightforward way to create like a lot of business logic and still keep it pretty reasonable and type safe. So this is like one of the main reasons for that is easy to read business logic. You can write a lot of it, and it's still type safe and manageable. Then you can also like depend on interfaces. It's another big reason. And then you can write tests for that and change code with like more you understand what this part depends on more clearly when you look, for example, like provide the direct signature. Okay, you can like split the classes more easily because you have like all the dependencies like come through the constructor, and you can basically copy paste it and then split into two and like, like drill down the dependencies. I think it's just easier to maintain bigger code bases if you have this constructor DI. When it comes to the framework, we just came to a point which was when this part was unmanageable. I don't have this slide here, I think, to show you, but it will become like too messy and too complicated with a lot of ifs, because, for example, we have this editor for designer mode where we don't have, for example, the e-commerce modules. So we had to load a lot of business logic conditionally based on the environment, based on the product, based on the user logged in. And this, like, there were a lot of ifs in the code that were based on the environment, and hence it like necessitated some bigger push to organization, hence the framework.
Okay, I got a question regarding the last pattern that you mentioned, the one about extending an object with...
This one?
The one that extends your object, the object interface, and adds the properties, basically.
This one. Oh, no, the type inject, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So this is, I think the two cool ones is type inject. It's pretty cool. This one, this is by Nikos, and this was...
Okay. So just a short question. The last one about extending the object, how does it, this one? How does it handle the naming conflicts? Because sometimes...
It doesn't.
Okay.
Yes, this is one of the issues. It doesn't.
Very funny. Very good question. Easy answer. I love it. Yes, folks, please try to thank you very much for your questions. And once again, let's give a really big hand to the speaker. Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very privileged to be in a room with people who actually understand everything that he said, I must say. I am not tech savvy, so I just hear because of my ability to recognize everyone and communicate fairly well. With regard to the situation on the software market, there are so many more jobs appearing, and of course, it's more and more difficult to find qualified, let's say, really experienced developers. I'm here advocating for teaching IT in high school. I don't think any high school students should be able to graduate from high school unless they are proficient in reading or writing at least one computer language. And I'm going to be looking for your help and support in that. All right. So our next speaker, I've been looking forward to this talk because last time he came and gave a lightning talk. Oh, by the way, if you have more questions later on, you can also ask questions to the speakers during our networking session. Artur Zochniak gave a lightning talk last time, which was so engaging that he actually ended up holding a short, like, I don't know, Warstadt or whatever he did after that. People were very interested in hearing what he had to say. So without any further delay, let's welcome Artur Zochniak to the stage. And the title of his talk is Visual Reverse Engineering.
Hi, everyone. So I need 30 seconds or a little bit more to prepare. We'll be back soon. Zaraz wracamy.
Warsaw JS.
I'd like to announce that tickets are already on sale for WarsawJS Meetup number 93, and you'll be able to find out how to get those tickets as soon as our slide is available. So we're looking forward to seeing you all next time as well. In addition, Confront JS 2023 is also underway. We're organizing that now for you. The last one was a great success. It was really, really amazing. We had speakers from 7 or 8 different countries come together, even while Joe O'Biden was here in Warsaw. And it went without a hitch. It was a really fantastic experience. So we're hoping to see you there also. Let's see. So what do you guys think about the idea of teaching IT in high school? Do you think that it's a good idea? I mean, I think it could sort of at least help to make sure there are more qualified people, because technology is more and more increasingly a part of our everyday lives. And the fact that high school students have every available device and don't understand how they work, to me, is concerning. I think it's a good idea to start teaching our kids earlier about how to code, and then we have a more educated class and maybe more socially responsible applications of IT technology. And yeah, so I think it's a good idea. Are we there? All right. And anything else you want to announce, Mr. Gentara? Reverse engineering. That's correct. Artur Zochniak. Oh my gosh, I'm on the screen. Just a few more minutes, maybe one more minute. Only one. Thanks everyone for your patience. This is some interesting setup. Yeah, it does look like a magic trick he's about to perform. You're also a magician? Here you go.
This time I need to use my own.
Fascinating, really. No, really, this guy's lightning talk. By the way, 3 lightning talks, or 2 lightning talks now we have time for. So if you get up the courage to get up and speak, you could also win a 100% discount on a JetBrains license. And we encourage you to do so. Just, present some information that would be useful to the group. And you can win that. All set?
Dzień dobry wszystkim. So this talk is going to be in Polish. How many of you won't understand that? You will. We already know you will. Okay. Mamy pewien problem, ale już się naprawia. Dobry wieczór wszystkim. Nazywam się Artur Zochniak i mam przyjemność po raz kolejny gościć na WarsawJS. Kto widział zapowiedź sprzed miesiąca, co dzisiaj będzie? Okej, mamy trochę osób, czuję się zaszczycony. Więc powiedziałem wam coś o sobie. Miało to być tak troszeczkę może dookoła, ale dzisiaj już opowiem wam więcej. Więc opowiem wam skąd się w ogóle wziął pomysł i będzie też, jak widzicie, mam coś ze sobą, to ma taką symboliczną dla mnie wartość, zaraz opowiem, o co chodzi zgodnie z zasadą kinematografii, strzelba, Czechowa, jak już przyniosłem, to wam pokażę oczywiście. Opowiem wam, skąd w ogóle wziął się pomysł, trochę historii, trochę co mnie do tego sprowadziło przez tyle lat. Opowiem wam o narzędziu, przypomnę, narzędzie dotyczy wizualnej inżynierii odwrotnej. Inżyniera wsteczna, ale jednak myślę, że popełniłem błąd językowy. Zaczynamy. Inżynieria, projektowanie i konstruowanie obiektów i urządzeń technicznych. Inżynieria odwrotna to proces budowania identycznego rozwiązania, jakie gdzieś zaobserwowaliśmy. Na przykład tutaj jakaś jest dyrektywa, próbowałem znaleźć prawnie, czy jest to zdefiniowane, ale ogólnie możemy takie rzeczy robić, jeżeli mamy do niej dostępy, czyli inżynieria odwrotna oprogramowania militarnego może być zagrożona konsekwencjami. I wizualny związany z obrazem. Skąd się wziął w ogóle ten pomysł? Sięga od dość długich, dalekich czasów i miałem 18 lat. Był pewien konkurs, marzył mi się ten konkurs, dotyczył układania puzli. I jeszcze teraz powiem, jak wyglądało z moimi znajomymi czasy liceum. Mieliśmy 18 lat i każdy z nas zapraszał się na 18 urodziny. Bardzo fantastyczne czasy i każdy się składał na prezenty. I jeden z prezentów, który poprosiłem, że chciałbym dostać, to właśnie była gra, której rozwiązanie dawało nam... Tylko pozwolę sobie zobaczyć, jaki mamy czas. Wiadomo dlaczego. Tak, ale potrzebuję, wiecie, żebym... Tak, i dostałem, słuchajcie, koszulkę mam tę koszulkę cały czas ze sobą. Tak naprawdę, słuchajcie, to jest ta koszulka i tutaj z tego miejsca chciałbym serdecznie podziękować mojej całej klasie, co się tego zrzucili, dlatego że tę koszulkę mam cały czas i jak widzicie, nawet mam ją ze sobą. Teraz już zastanawiałem się kilka razy, czy ją chcę założyć, ale teraz już mam dowód, że taką miałem, także jest uwiecznione. I słuchajcie, dostałem też od moich ludzi z klasy, dostałem grę Eternity. Kontekst jest taki, gry Eternity, ktoś zna grę Eternity? To jest gra, za której rozwiązanie dostawało się dużo ogólnie pieniędzy, $1 milion. Ona miała, pierwsza edycja miała 209 kawałków, jacyś matematycy ją rozwiązali. I ja dostałem od moich klasowiczów, dostałem Eternity 2. Również był $1 milion nagrody, ale już było więcej puzli. I oczywiście moim marzeniem było to, żeby ten 1 milion zgarnąć. To jest jakby pierwsze. Więc co zacząłem robić? Wtedy jeszcze troszkę próbując programować, zacząłem oczywiście planować, że mogę to rozwiązać. No i zacząłem robić zdjęcia, zacząłem adnotować te puzzle. Okazuje się, że o ile przepisanie puzli jest proste, tak wyglądała ta gra. Także po prostu mój sposób był taki, nie byłem pierwszy w ogóle, ale mój pomysł był taki, że po prostu ten obraz, który jakby mamy, to po prostu go tniemy na kawałki i jakieś przetwarzamy algorytmy. Tak naprawdę te puzzle były osobno. W każdym razie, jeżeli to jest zdjęcie osoby, która była najbliżej, żeby ułożyć całe. Ale słuchajcie, spędziłem nad tym ileś czasu, ale nie rozwiązałem tego. Okazuje się, że nikt tego nie rozwiązał. No, ale jakby przemyślenia, te nieprzespane wieczory zostały i taki research techniczny również byłem już dość sporo przemyślałem. I teraz słuchajcie, mijają lata i pewnego dnia pojawił się taki wpis. To były czasy, kiedy lubiłem wyzwania, miałem dużo czasu, to były czasy studiów. Słuchajcie, były puzzle, przepraszam, pyszne pary. Bo ogłoszono konkurs, który polegał na tym, że trzeba było jak najszybciej ułożyć te puzzle. No i co ja sobie mogłem o tym pomyśleć, jakby z tym się nie udało, to może chociaż uda się wygrać. Za pierwsze miejsce były, słuchajcie, kapcie na USB. Ale no co ja mogłem z tym zrobić? Gra ogólnie była podobna do gry Memory. To w zasadzie była gra Memory, to nie były puzzle, ale tak naprawdę układanie puzli i wykrywanie, która karta, tutaj trzeba zapamiętywać, gdzie coś było i tak dalej. Słuchajcie, to były początki Pythona, jeszcze tam mojego Pythona, nauki. W każdym razie podpiąłem się do OpenCV. Myśmy wtedy, pamiętam, na laboratoriach, pozdrawiam bardzo serdecznie doktora Jarnickiego, fantastyczne, tak jest, właśnie, pozdrawiam bardzo. W ogóle na sali jest mój człowiek Filip, bardzo się cieszę, przekleństwo wycięte, że tutaj jest, wyjątkowa osoba w moim życiu. Słuchajcie, udało mi się znaleźć tak zwany pattern matching. To jest nic innego jak mamy obraz jeden i doszukujemy się go w drugim obrazku. Tutaj jest na przykładzie z dokumentacji zbieranie monet w Mario, można je wykrywać. Tutaj na przykład można też tego używać do Magic the Gathering, to jest jakaś inna gra, ale no można też takie by robić różne rzeczy. No i teraz widzicie, jakby jest tutaj pewne podobieństwo, że mamy wykrywanie tego, gdzie są jakieś pary, wykrywanie puzli. No i słuchajcie, udało mi się to połączyć. I jak w ogóle to się robiło? Po prostu nic się nie zmieniło przez tyle czasu. Słuchajcie, cały czas się używa, może przeglądarka się u mnie zmieniła, ale ogólnie to, jakieś wiecie, pierwsze rzeczy z tej mąki udało się upiec chleb, który co zrobił? Słuchajcie, układało to samo. Nie wiem, gdzie mam ten kod źródłowy, może na jakimś dysku, ale okazało się, że słuchajcie, wygrałem to, dostałem to. Jakby to... Tak mi bardzo zależało na tym, w ogóle, że zacząłem się kontaktować, tutaj coś jeszcze mamy, no po prostu dostałem wygraną, nie? Słuchajcie, tak mi bardzo zależało, że nawet zacząłem dopytywać tę panią, kiedy będą te kapcie na USB. Okej, wniosek z tego jest taki, tyle słowem wstępu, wniosek z tego jest taki, że przetwarzanie obrazów może nie musi być takie trudne, jak na początku się wydawało, może być proste. You understand? Wonderful. Okej, mamy 2022 rok. Słuchajcie, trochę się zmienił mój skillset, ale nadal lubię wyzwania i chcę wam opowiedzieć o narzędziu do wizualnej inżynierii odwrotnej. Więc przy projektowaniu oprogramowania, które miałoby nam pomagać, warto zastanowić się, jak ono powinno w ogóle być zaprojektowane, żebyśmy mogli rozszerzać. No bo jeżeli chcę zrobić coś, co będzie mi pomagało, to chcę to zrobić najlepiej jak mogę, no bo chciałbym tego używać do końca życia. Tak jak wiedzy, którą pozyskałem wtedy, tylko teraz nie mam czasu, żeby tę wiedzę zdobywać. Teraz mogę tylko przemyślanie mój swój czas wolny inwestować. I przy tym narzędziu będziemy intensywnie wykorzystywać systemy projektowania komponentów frontendowych. No i kolejna rzecz to po prostu o realizacji wam opowiem tego. Więc wzorce projektowe to bardzo ważny aspekt dzisiejszego programowania, dlatego że pozwala zaoszczędzić nam bardzo dużo czasu. I tutaj chciałem pozdrowić dr Zofię Kruczkiewicz z mojej uczelni, dlatego że to pani Zofia zapoczątkowała jakby potrzebę zrozumienia wzorców projektowych. Czy jakby używacie na co dzień strategii, Objectifiera, komendy, kompozytu, fantastyczne wzorce, Chain of Responsibility, na tym stoi cały JavaScript. Tak jest, jeszcze na prototypie stoi JavaScript, ale bym powiedział nawet bardziej, że na Chain of Responsibility. Polecam bardzo tę książkę. No i teraz tak, jakbyśmy mieli więcej czasu, to może byśmy weszli w dyskusję, lubię dyskusję, ale nie mamy czasu. To są takie rzeczy, żeby po prostu trochę poruszyć, żeby te wzorce nie były tylko takie niepraktyczne, ale żeby były... Tak, to są takie na przykład przykładowe rzeczy, które są ważne. I jeszcze druga rzecz, o której wspomniałem, design systemy, a więc zbiór komponentów, które oferują w odizolowaniu jakąś część logiki renderowania frontendu. Ktoś z was używa design systemów do rozwijania oprogramowania? Okej, no to widzicie, jakby to jeszcze nie wszyscy. I teraz słuchajcie, zanim zacznę, to jeszcze chcę powiedzieć, co mam ze sobą. I to, co mam ze sobą, to nic innego jak maszyna oblężnicza ze średniowiecza. I słuchajcie, na pewno zastanawiacie się, co ja teraz z tym zrobię, jak ja to zamierzam powiedzieć. Nawiązując do naszego dzisiejszego toka, uważam, że to jest egzemplifikacja tego, o czym dzisiaj mówię, bo Grzegorz, od którego tę maszynę nabyłem, była tak skromnie schowana w fundacji, w której działa Grzegorz. Bardzo pozdrawiam serdecznie. Słuchajcie, jakby chyba czekała na mnie. I teraz chodzi o to, że to jest egzemplifikacja wizualnej inżynierii odwrotnej, dlatego że tak naprawdę nie ma planów z średniowiecza, jak budowano trebuszety, a Grzegorz zbudował bardzo ładny trebusz i jestem pod wrażeniem, jak on wygląda, dlatego że od razu jak go nabyłem, to sobie przypomniałem, że już oglądałem na YouTubie różne rzeczy i powiem wam, że zrobi to fantastycznie. W każdym razie dobra inżynieria odwrotna może być bardzo ciesząca dla oka i satysfakcjonująca. No i mam nadzieję, że coś takiego też uda mi się osiągnąć, to jest moja inspiracja. I teraz o design systemach, więc jakby to zaraz będziemy mogli tym się może sprawdzimy, jak działa. Design systemy, takim liderem w prezentowaniu design systemów jest Storybook. I teraz jest taki bardzo fajny talk na TED Talks, dlaczego warto czytać książkę każdego dnia. Ja to sobie zmieniam, dlaczego warto czytać kod źródłowy design systemu każdego dnia. Czy wiecie, że znamy to jest GitHub. Czy wiecie, że GitHub udostępnia swój design system i tak naprawdę możecie zacząć sobie robić klona swojego GitHuba, korzystając z tego, co już jest otwarte źródłowe, nie trzeba tego od początku budować. Corel ma też swój design system. Tutaj słabo widać jakoś, ale przyznaję, że jest bardzo elegancki i to jednak pokazuje. Guardian ma swój design system. Wiele rządów decyduje się opublikować swoje design systemy. To jakby, jeżeli to finansują podatnicy, to może warto to rozważyć. I teraz, jeżeli jesteśmy na przykład ciekawi, jak inni zaimplementowali jakieś rzeczy, jest bardzo fajna strona Code Rosetta, która służy do podglądania, jak inni zrobili algorytmikę, implementację algorytmów. Design systemy otwartoźródłowe są czymś takim dla nas, dla programistów frontendu. I można się w ogóle bardzo ciekawych rzeczy dowiedzieć, czytając kod. Na przykład tutaj też może po prostu powiem, z jakiegoś powodu zagnieżdżony link ma position absolute i wypełnia próbuje swojego całego rodzica relatywnie pozycjonowanego wypełnić za pomocą inset 0 w skrócie. Bardzo ciekawe, nie wiem dlaczego to zrobili, mam pewien pomysł, ale to jest taka jedna techniczna rzecz, której na przykład nie jestem w stanie od razu zrozumieć, a zauważyłem to czytając inny kod. Adobe Spectrum też jest bardzo ładny design system. Już teraz kończymy o design systemach, ale na tym się chwileczkę możemy zatrzymać, żebyście zobaczyli, jakie już są piękne rzeczy zrobione. I one są wszystkie, one przychodzą razem z logiką, czyli jakby prosta logika obsługi, kliknięć jest zaimplementowana. To są inne design systemy. W każdym razie okazuje się, że no, wizualnie my możemy dużo czasu zaoszczędzić używając tych komponentów, a są jeszcze takie perełki, pierwsze perełki w mojej dzisiejszej prelekcji. W niektórych design systemach są rozwiązania, które jakbyśmy mieli robić od zera, to by nam naprawdę dużo zajęło czasu. Czyli na przykład, nie wiem, czy ktoś z was kiedyś zrobi, żeby w inpucie się pojawiało po małpce lista użytkowników. Robiłeś od zera i przyjemne?
Nie od zera, ale nieprzyjemne.
Jest to wyzwanie, a słuchajcie, są design systemy, Undesign konkretnie, które to mają wbudowane. W ogóle polecam bardzo zapoznać się z kodem, bo też jest ciekawe, jak to zostało zrobione. W każdym razie, słuchajcie, no jest to bardzo ciekawe doświadczenie, dlatego że wiele wcześniej rzeczy było jakby ukrytych przed jakby zwykłymi zjadaczami chleba. No i teraz tak, teraz możemy się zastanowić nad czymś takim, co to jest w ogóle dobre oprogramowanie. Szybko przejdziemy, niezawodne, przyjemne w korzystaniu, mające minimalne wymagania i tak dalej. W każdym razie dużo jest bardzo aspektów, co powinniśmy robić o dobrym oprogramowaniu. I teraz pytanie brzmi, czy my chcemy spędzać czas nad tym, żeby w jakiś sposób oscylować po raz kolejny komponenty i później dodać do nich kolejny raz logikę, na przykład oprogramować taby. Śmiem twierdzić, że nasze życie jest chyba za krótkie i może zbyt cenne, żebyśmy to robili od zera. Skupmy się na tych rzeczach. Na pewno tutaj każdy jeszcze może dopisać ileś swoich rzeczy. No i słuchajcie, ja pracuję na co dzień, zajmuję się design systemem firmy Synerize. Bardzo polecam. Jest otwartoźródłowy. I ogólnie ten design system wyróżnia się czymś takim, że tutaj są naprawdę bardzo skomplikowane komponenty. No i to jest ogólnie, licząc w ogóle jakby w czasach, w godzinach pracy, to jest duża oszczędność, jeżeli możemy czegoś użyć. No i teraz design system Synerize jest zainspirowany undesignem, który jest w ogóle bardzo dobrze przemyślany, dlatego że rozgranicza wszystkie komponenty na komponenty mądre i głupie, powiedzmy, bystre, czyli jakby mamy logikę zaimplementowaną w jednych komponentach prosto wyglądających, a wygląd mamy doimplementowany w komponencie wykorzystującym ten komponent. Bardzo mądre rozbicie, niewiele design systemów to ma. Material UI na przykład robi coś takiego, że ma logikę i wygląd razem, a dopiero później się dodaje takie specjalne komponenty, które odstylowują wszystko, albo tak to wygląda w dokumentacji. Słuchajcie, to są przykładowe komponenty z design systemu, nad którym ja na co dzień pracuję. To są pełki. Chyba w firmie, Synerize udało się w końcu, projektantom Synerize udało się rozwiązać wieczny problem, jak ma wyglądać date picker. Tak, ma wszystko. Ma względne daty do tyłu, do przodu, nieskończoność. Słuchajcie, jak chcielibyście sobie zrobić takie jest oprogramowanie monitor do szukania, skomplikowane filtry, monitor do przeszukiwania ogłoszeń nieruchomości. Słuchajcie, w design systemie jest taki skomplikowany komponent do definiowania złożonych filtrów. Albo na przykład tutaj takie CRM-owe wyglądające rozwiązanie, tak naprawdę to jest CRM nieużywane. Te wszystkie rzeczy są od razu gotowe, to jest jeden komponent, który po prostu jest górną częścią strony. No i teraz tak, wiemy z początku, że możemy osiągać sukcesy przetwarzając obraz. Po czasie firmy mijają lata jakby w moim życiu. Później dowiadujemy się, że duże firmy publikują to, co wypracowały, więc teraz może warto tego używać. I teraz korzystając z sytuacji, z okoliczności, chciałbym powiedzieć, że jeżeli szukacie ambitnych wyzwań, ambitnej pracy, to Synerize, mówię to z pełną odpowiedzialnością, jest bezkompromisową firmą, jeżeli chodzi o jakość rozwiązań, które dostarcza. I jeżeli uważacie, że chcielibyście z kimś takim jak ja współpracować albo mieć mnie chociaż na Slacku, na Teamsach, to przede wszystkim polecam również rozważyć aplikację do sponsorów WarsawJS. Bardzo dziękujemy sponsorom. A jeżeli ktoś by chciał ze mną współpracować, to piszcie do Synerize, chcecie współpracować z Zochniakiem i polecam, bo jak ktoś, myślę, że jak ktoś czuje, żeby się ze mną dogadał, to również ja to odwzajemnię. No i słuchajcie, przechodzimy do realizacji narzędzia. Czy są może jakieś pytania? Nie ma. Okej, więc teraz tak, mój pomysł na narzędzie, to były ostatni screen, który pokazałem na wprowadzeniu, to narzędzie, które na podstawie zrzutu ekranu potrafi z pewną pomocą naszą, bądź nie, stworzyć aplikację, która będzie solidnym fundamentem do dalszego rozwoju przez programistów. I to nie jest narzędzie, które zastępuje programistów, to jest narzędzie, które przygotowuje coś dla programistów, żeby mogli z lepszymi praktykami rozpocząć pracę nad kodem. Jak wygląda w ogóle tworzenia programowania? Więc ktoś ma pomysł, później jest projekt realizowany, projekt jest projektowany, czyli mamy projekt tego, co ma być zrobione, następuje realizacja, no i kończymy projekt. No okazuje się, że to byłoby bardzo przyjemne, gdyby to było takie proste. Okazuje się, że to raczej bywa tak, że że gdzieś jest wycena, później znowu wycena, są poprawki, znowu jest jakby wycena, są komplikacje, starcia. Ogólnie wiele rzeczy dzieje się sekwencyjnie i się nie kończy, tak. No ale bądźmy formalistami, że powinno być wszystko swój początek i koniec, jak poemat. I teraz różnice między, zleceniodawca chce, żeby było zrobione terminowo i żeby najmniejszym kosztem wykonać, a wykonawca, software house, my jako indywidualni programiści, no jednak niestety borykamy się z problemami właśnie budowania, wynajdywania koła od nowa, a teraz jakby wiemy, że mamy dużo już design systemów, które wiele rzeczy po stronie frontendu już nam rozwiązują. No i z pomocą przychodzi rozwiązanie Visual Reverse Engineering VIRE w mojej nomenklaturze. System szybkiej zamiany wizualnych oczekiwań użytkownika na kod, który później może być rozwijany przez zespoły programistów w sposób równoległy, najlepiej. Długie rozważania, w każdym razie to przypomina to, co wam tutaj przedstawiam, to jest w pewien sposób ufunkcyjnienie kodu, ale w ramach transformacji, które odbywają się na kodzie jako tekście. I podobieństwie logiki, izomorfizmowi, homografii logiki, takie jakieś różne. W każdym razie jest to w pewien sposób matematyczne podstawy, że to może być przydatne. W każdym razie ja je widzę. I teraz informacje ogólne o specyfikacji. To jest slajd, który był na zapowiedzi. I teraz pomysł jest bardzo prosty. Mamy plik wejściowy, który dostajemy od grafika. Nawet to nie musi być jakiś plik po prostu wyeksportowany, PNG, cokolwiek. I mamy bazę komponentów, które oznaczamy. Czyli jakby tutaj mamy menu, zielone to jest menu, horyzontalne, pomarańczowe to menu z boku. Mamy tutaj logo. Po prostu na tym obrazku oznaczamy komponenty, które już mamy w naszym design systemie i następnie stosujemy coś takiego magicznego jak algorytm pozycjonujący. I on nam na stronie wynikowej bez tych ramek, także jak widzicie, my to jeszcze musimy dopracować, ale tak naprawdę dostajemy od razu zarys tego, co chcieliśmy osiągnąć i musimy tylko doszlifować, ale zaleta jest taka, że gdyby nam udało się od razu mieć już bazę tych komponentów albo znaleźć podobne komponenty, to zobaczcie, że wiele rzeczy już pod ten projekt mamy gotowych, przygotowanych. My teraz załadujemy, instrukcja obsługi kształtowałaby się tak, że ładujemy obrazek do naszego narzędzia, następnie oznaczamy ekrany, oznaczamy komponenty, które w nim są i jeżeli jakichś komponentów nie udało nam się jakimś algorytmem rozpoznać, czy to musimy je ręcznie oznaczyć, następnie te komponenty, które oznaczyliśmy, mapujemy do naszego design systemu i możemy zlecić dostosowanie komponentów zespołu i programistów. W skrócie, jak widzicie, pomysł jest prosty, po prostu jeżeli to byłoby pole tekstowe, to po prostu możemy na przykład stosować pozycjonowanie absolutne i po prostu kolejne komponenty będą zastępowane na swoje współrzędne. To jest najprostsza implementacja i teraz baza ekranów do realizacji, baza komponentów, to są rzeczy, które musimy zaimplementować. No teraz tak wygląda po prostu, mamy w bazie naszych komponentów, że mamy przycisk, to będzie na przykład w taki sposób wyglądał kalendarz. Tutaj akurat korzystam z design systemu, z materiału UI. I teraz mamy pole tekstowe, oznaczamy go jako, że to jest ten fragment, który wycinamy i teraz mapujemy go do komponentu, który pozwala nam wyszukiwać. No i teraz tak wygląda to narzędzie, ono rzeczywiście już działa, nie starczy czasu na demo, mogę wam później pokazać. W każdym razie to jest widok ekranów, taki jakby landscape, możemy go skrólować podobnie jak w Figmie to zrobiłem. Tutaj mamy oznaczanie wszystkich komponentów, tutaj mamy widok już wyekstraktowanych komponentów, a to jest widok generujący nam kod, który możemy pobrać, wypakować i to jest nasz fundament naszego projektu. No i teraz jeszcze pytanie brzmi, jak pozycjonować. Tutaj było zaprezentowane pozycjonowanie absolutne wszystkiego. Jestem w trakcie ewoluowania rozwiązań, żeby automatycznie Flex na przykład się aplikował. No i teraz to jest ogólnie to dużo dostarcza. Okay, so we need to finish. Ogólnie rzecz biorąc, to jeszcze chciałem pokazać demo. Tak, to pokażę na Lightning Talku. I w każdym razie, jeżeli chcielibyście dowiedzieć się, jak to zostało zrobione, to zachęcam was. Mam taki pomysł, żebyśmy w jakiejś grupie spotkali się w ostatni czwartek miesiąca i jeżeli będziecie chcieli, to pokażę wam, jak coś takiego możecie sami zrobić, żebyście mogli coś takiego mieć w waszym portfolio. Bo ja myślę, że to narzędzie jest najpotężniejsze, jeżeli dokładnie wiemy, co jest pod spodem. No i teraz co? Na stronie meetzochniak.pl jest możliwość zapisów. Okej, i zaraz sobie to może wypróbujemy. W każdym razie to tyle. Dziękuję bardzo. Przepraszam za spóźnienie.
Dziękujemy, panie Arturze. I jeszcze dziękujemy bardzo. W związku z tym, że jesteśmy chyba bardzo głodni, zapraszamy po pizzę właśnie na pytanie dla pani Arturze. To jest okej dla ciebie?
Tak.
Więc robimy taką przerwę teraz. Jeśli by wiedziałem, że muszę mówić po polsku, mogłem przygotować trochę lepiej, ale Zapraszamy na pizzę i wracamy tutaj potem na pytanie dla pani Arturze. Dziękujemy bardzo jeszcze raz.
Bardzo dziękuję.
Ile? Aha, właśnie. A mamy, powiedzmy 20 minut. Tak, 20 minut. Dziękujemy bardzo.
Dobra.
Bo rozumiem, że to jest oparte na ten sam, tak?
Nie, to jest design system, jest którą można podpiąć. Ale
All right. Okay, so welcome back after that short break. We have a very quick lightning talk coming up by Miss Milano Slobsova. Let's invite her to the stage. Welcome her.
Super, dziękuję bardzo. Mam slajdy przygotowane po polsku i jest to szybka prezentacja, 2-minutowa, więc myślę, że wygodnie będzie, jak powiem po polsku. Jest mi bardzo miło, że dzisiaj mam okazję zaprezentować Wam hackathon, który aktualnie organizuję. Hackathon studencki dla studentów SGH oraz Politechniki i szukam mentorów technicznych, więc jeżeli po wszystkich detalach, które zaraz przedstawię, bylibyście chętni do zostania mentorem, zapraszam do kontaktu. Jestem w części networkingowej, więc możecie tutaj mnie złapać. Startup Step by Step jest hackathonem dla studentów SGH oraz Politechniki, ale też jesteśmy otwarci na inne uczelnie, na studentów z innych uczelni, więc zapraszamy. Studenci zostaną połączone w 4 do 6 osobowe zespoły i będą mieli 48 godzin na stworzenie własnego zarówno modelu biznesowego, jak i części technologicznej projektu. I też chciałabym powiedzieć, że wydarzenie odbywa się 20 do 22 maja, to jest weekend. Zaczynamy w piątek o godzinie 16 i kończymy w niedzielę prezentacją każdego z projektu o godzinie 19. Miejscem wydarzenia jest Google for Startups Campus w Warszawie, co jest bardzo fajną przestrzenią. Uczestnicy, jak i mentorzy dostaną całodobowy dostęp do tej przestrzeni, więc będzie na pewno się działo. Po co właściwie robimy ten hackathon? Aby połączyć studentów ze świata biznesu i ze świata IT, bo ja jako studentka SGH i też moi koledzy odczuwamy te braki, nie możemy znaleźć co-foundera, tak samo studenci z Politechniki mają takie same problemy, więc tutaj chcielibyśmy im dać możliwość połączenia sił i miejmy nadzieję, że utworzą się jakieś fajne zespoły na dłuższą współpracę. Też oczywiście będą dostępni mentorzy, których aktualnie szukam, technicznych, żeby przygadać swoje pomysły z doświadczonymi mentorami i też podłapać pierwsze doświadczenie w startupach, w IT, wpisać fajny już projekt do CV realny, który był zrobiony od zera. Tak jak powiedziałam, szukamy mentorów technicznych, zapraszam serdecznie. Tematyka hackathonu z góry nie jest narzucona, bo może to wystraszyć studentów, jeżeli powiemy, że na przykład robimy hackathon z branży fintech albo medtech, to powiedzą, że ja się nie znam i nie zaaplikują. Tutaj bardziej chodzi nam o to, żeby pobudzić ich kreatywność i żeby wcielili w życie własne pomysły, albo też damy im przykładowe problematyki do rozwiązania, więc na pewno nikt nie zostanie bez pomysłu. Tak jeszcze dopowiem, że mentorzy nie będą musieli być obecni podczas całego wydarzenia, tylko na przykład mogą wpaść w sobotę rano albo w niedzielę rano o dowolnej godzinie, tylko wcześniej się musimy umówić. Tak, i szukamy mentorów zarówno frontendowych, jak i backendowych, więc na pewno studenci będą zadowoleni z konsultacji z każdym specjalistą. Zapraszam tutaj do kontaktu albo przez maila, przez telefon, albo też jestem tutaj aktualnie na wydarzeniu, więc zapraszam, można się ze mną złapać. Tak, no i wspierajmy młodych przedsiębiorców i polski ekosystem startupowy razem. Zapraszam do kontaktu serdecznie i życzę miłego wieczoru.
Bardzo dziękujemy. Bardzo wyraźne prezentacje. Wiemy, o co chodzi. Szukamy mentorów. Właśnie mentorowanie. Bardzo ważny element chyba w waszym branży. Po prostu. Okay. So, yes, very important, this mentorship. I think everyone needs it. And if you're able to be a mentor, please make yourselves available. Everyone needs you, especially these up-and-coming developers. All right. So we're going to continue now with some questions and hopefully answers from Artur. So does anyone have any questions for Pani Artur? Pan Artur. Questions about the presentation? Here we go. Okay, are you ready? Wait, let me make sure this goes on. It's not. So what I'm gonna do is do this.
All right, just simple question. If you could summarize the last 2 talks in like 4 sentences, what is it?
Thank you very much.
Yes, so we spend a lot of time on building software. We should focus on important parts. a lot of work is repeated, and we need a tool to start building projects from scratch easier. And this is the tool which automates extracting parts of your final design and changes them directly into components, which your team in concurrent manner can work on this.
Wow, one long sentence. Very well done. That's the
5
answer?
sentences.
That was 5?
Yeah, 5 sentences.
I think it was a great answer. Does anyone else have any questions for Artur?
Yeah.
Yes, here's one.
Does it have to be in English or can I do Polish? Yeah, English?
Do both, please.
Okay. No, okay, to będzie po polsku. Otóż wolno i wyraźnie. Otóż, czy porozmawiamy o przyszłości, czy jeżeli mówisz, że twoje narzędzie, jeżeli zobaczylibyśmy demo i ono rzeczywiście by zadziałało i robi to wszystko, co nam obiecano, czy jeżeli połączymy to z, powiedzmy, jakąś kolekcją istniejących interfejsów albo, powiedzmy, screencastów z aplikacji, które są i są sklasyfikowane, że robią pewne workflowy, czy moglibyśmy pójść o krok dalej i generować aplikacje albo frontendy przynajmniej do tych aplikacji zupełnie na podstawie, powiedzmy, no mówisz, hey Siri, zrób mi aplikację do ride sharingu i ona robi to wszystko, co mówisz. Czy to jest przyszłość, którą widzisz?
Nie. Nie i dlatego, że to nie nastąpi za naszego życia. Ja tak uważam, dlatego że żeby oprogramowanie było praktyczne, to ono musi być dostosowane do potrzeb. I teraz dlatego się wszystkim właścicielom firm doradza, żeby najpierw sobie wszystkie swoje procesy ujęli w Excelu, a dopiero później, żeby poszli do kogoś, żeby im to zautomatyzował, bo Excel jest takim narzędziem, które już ma wszystko. Tak naprawdę, a wszystkie inne rozwiązania, które mamy, to są parafrazy tego, co na początku właściciele tych biznesów mieli już zrobione w Excelu. I możemy próbować, ale tak naprawdę przez wiele lat, no a ja twierdzę, że dekad, nie znajdziemy oprogramowania, które utworzy nam, słysząc zdanie, interpretując zdanie, odczyta nasze potrzeby. Po prostu nasz język jest zbyt mało precyzyjny i to widzimy również w opisie technicznym tak naprawdę, ile musimy ifów zrobić, żeby prostą rzecz napisać. Ostatnio taki bardzo fajny obrazek chodzi po sieci, algorytm notyfikacji na Slacku, jak to jest skomplikowane, a mówimy tylko o notyfikacji na Slacku, a okazuje się, że tam jest bardzo wiele bloków, które są podejmowane. Więc jakby myślę, że to są ciekawe eksperymenty. Mnie eksperymenty już chyba nie interesują, mnie interesują praktyczne rozwiązania i ja coś takiego dostarczam wam. Oferuję wam, że możecie to zrobić razem ze mną. Przypominam, meetzochniak.pl.
Jeszcze pytanie tutaj mamy. Dziękujemy bardzo.
A w razie czego też się zrozumiałem, o co pytałeś, że jakby po prostu analizujemy cały screencast ale tak, okej, słucham.
Okay, so one of the potential problems I've seen with at least this implementation was that the coordinates of the elements were kind of hard-coded. Are there any problems with extendability of the generated applications or generated elements of the applications?
So those coordinates which were there, they are just for demonstration how this application will apply those and those components will look like, so that we can have a feeling how final version will look like. But generally, in current state, we as front-end developers, we would have to adjust those coordinates. We would have to replace them with some well-thought idea how to position all of those elements. But what's important is that we get source code of all the components which are building the system, in addition with possible initial implementation if we have this component in our component repository. Is okay? Okay. Thank you.
Cześć, jeżeli dobrze zrozumiałem Twoją prezentację, to rozumiem, że jako deweloper mogę eksportować to, co znalazłem, tak? I to tworzy mi jakiś tam taki POC, tak? Kodu, tak?
Tak.
W zasadzie, nie? Czyli rozumiem, że to tworzy tam sam kod, czy powiedzmy generuje też, powiedzmy, nie wiem, jak mam moduły, tak? Czyli po prostu mam pakiet JSON, tak? I coś w tym stylu, czy tak schodzimy niskopoziomowo, czy po prostu sam kod, gotowe rozwiązania i coś tam jeszcze trzeba?
Szkielet gotowego na chwilę obecną, myślę raczej o szkielecie gotowego rozwiązania, ale tak naprawdę teraz eksperymentuję, w jaki sposób przygotować zipa z wszystkim. A ten zip nie musi być stworzonym od zera, tylko może być zipem, jest właśnie Create React App Template, TypeScriptowy na przykład. I tak naprawdę to, co możemy zrobić, to możemy na serwerze na przykład w mikroserwisie tworzącym tego naszego zipa z projektem, który obejmuje wszystkie te rzeczy, które dostarczyliśmy do tego narzędzia, rozpakujemy początkowy stan projektu i do niego doklejamy te rzeczy. Czyli tak naprawdę to nie jest jedno jakieś. Możemy to włączyć do jakiegoś przykładowego zipa z projektem na przykład Create React App i wtedy mamy, czy Vue CLI, jakiś po prostu i w ten sposób mamy połączone to. To najważniejsze jest to, że jeżeli są komponenty, które możemy zimportować tych wygenerowanych, zaraz pokażę. Myślę, zaraz pokażę. Jeżeli to nam po prostu tworzy strukturę komponentów, nad którym już zespół może pracować równolegle i nie musi się martwić, że czegoś zabraknie, bo wszystkie komponenty oznaczyliśmy na finalnym ekranie aplikacji docelowej. Nic nie przegapimy. Okay.
Anyone else? Questions for one more question we have, and then I have and then I also have a question. Thank you very much. 1 second.
Dziękuję. Znasz program Anima?
Nie znam programu Anima.
Dlatego, że dlatego, że właśnie w tym programie to tworzy swój design i z niego się generuje kod Vue.js. Moje pytanie było, jak porównujesz do tego, co
tak,
ty robisz.
Znam QuantUX.
QuantUX, nie.
To jest to samo.
Ja nie znam
to jest to samo.
Więc...
Tak, te narzędzia mają taki problem, że właśnie to jest ostatnie zdanie opisu dzisiejszego talka. To nie jest no-code i low-code rozwiązanie, tylko to jest nadal rozwiązanie przygotowujące fundament dla zespołów programistów. To nie jest rozwiązanie, które od razu dostarcza jak Webflow. Na przykład dlatego tutaj cieszę się, że nikt nie pytał o Webflow, bo to znaczy, że jakby albo może nikt nie zna. Ale to nie jest rozwiązanie, które docelowo jakby tworzy aplikację do końca, tylko to jest rozwiązanie, które zamienia projekt poprzez oznaczone elementy, gdzie są jakie komponenty i przygotowuje nam fundament do tego, żeby nasi programiści mogli to w sposób zrównoleglony już dostosować perfekcyjnie pod potrzeby odbiorcy. This is...
Pan jest front-end developer, ale skończyliśmy powoli, prawda?
Demo.
Zrozumiałe?
Tak, już. So I can, just show like few drag and drops and I will show you how it works.
Yes? Okay, let's do it.
By the way, are there any other lightning talks today? Okay, continue.
Okay, yes, I also have one question before we start. Gdzie mogę dostać taki coś?
Warownia Jomsborg.
Gdzie?
Warownia Jomsborg. Wejrownia Jomsborg. Wejrownia Jomsborg.
Aha, a to jest w Warszawie?
It's close to FSO Żerań.
A to w ogóle nie wiem. Ale pan może mi pomóc.
Tak.
Pomagać, dziękuję.
Tak się, słuchajcie, zazwyczaj to się zamyka, teraz nie trzeba. Słuchajcie, tyle opowiadania, a może wystarczyło pokazać. Nie, wtedy nie. Słuchajcie, mam tutaj 2 ekrany przykładowe. Zaczniemy od takiego. To jest ogólnie takie, to jest moduł, który pozwala nam organizować sobie ekrany, które będziemy omawiać. Teraz od razu dam sobie tutaj drugi. Jak widzicie, pojawiają nam się te obie rzeczy. To nie jest ta sama aplikacja, ale na potrzeby demo, żeby było krótsze, po prostu zrobimy. Teraz odpalam sobie ten obrazek i teraz słuchajcie, tutaj mogę sobie oznaczyć. Oznaczam sobie, że to jest navbar.
Wait. I just need these last 2 slides. Conf.js and number 4, and then we're done.
Wiadomo, co się dzieje. I teraz słuchajcie, takie tutaj dokonałem pierwsze oznaczenie. I teraz to już nam się pojawia tutaj. Mamy ten komponent przygotowany do ekstrakcji. Nie mylić z ekstrakcją zęba. Czyli chyba może złego słowa używam. Więc jakby teraz jeszcze dokończmy to i tutaj oznaczmy kolejne elementy. Tutaj sobie oznaczymy menu. To menu troszeczkę się jeszcze ciągnie w dół. Zaraz może je poprawimy, ale chcę po prostu wam pokazać. To będzie jakiś header i to jak naprawdę przy decydowaniu, jak to tniemy, to no, musi ktoś to rozsądny obserwować, ale zobaczcie, że ja to robię, już teraz się nie śpieszę, już teraz mam czas, tak naprawdę, bo wiem, że to trwa bardzo krótko. I słuchajcie, oznaczam tutaj te rzeczy, tutaj chcę cały ten blok, powiedzmy, że to będzie cały jeden komponent, ja go teraz sobie tutaj uproszczę. Teraz tutaj sobie to jeszcze zaznaczę, że to też będzie osobny komponent. Tutaj taki widget z mapką, to też może być osobny komponent. I taki tutaj chart. To ogólnie to jest po prostu tyle, że każdą z tych rzeczy może zająć się równolegle odrębna osoba. No i teraz słuchajcie, po prostu przechodzimy i mamy te wszystkie rzeczy przygotowane do wycięcia. I teraz możemy tutaj oznaczyć rzeczy, które są, co my tutaj będziemy mieli na przykład, to są przykładowe, ale to będę tutaj miał na przykład teraz kartę, aha, nie ma tutaj czegoś takiego. Ogólnie tutaj teraz jeszcze, widzicie, nie dodałem tabów, ale to tutaj chciałbym oznaczyć jako taby, tabs. Mogę sobie to od razu zrobić i teraz tutaj jest lista zimportowanych komponentów już z istniejących design systemów, które będą bazą dla tego w wygenerowanym kodzie. I już jedna osoba może skupić się na tym, żeby dostosować to pod potrzeby wyglądu naszego, dlatego że rezultat ogólnie może wyglądać, aha, tutaj potrzebuję troszeczkę zrobić tak, tutaj zrobimy sobie navbar komponent, to będzie menu entries. I teraz jak widzicie tutaj te rzeczy wpisuję i one mi się, a teraz jeszcze dlaczego mi tutaj się nie menu entries, dlaczego mi się nie wygenerowało? Zobaczmy. O, coś tutaj widzę, że okej, tutaj nam po prostu powstaje struktura i teraz mam tutaj przygotowane 2 pliki HTML, które po skopiowaniu do przeglądarki, to jest aplikacja właśnie tutaj to jest właśnie kod, który został wygenerowany i to są wszystkie komponenty pozycjonowane absolutnie. Widzicie, coś tutaj jeszcze przegapiłem. W każdym razie, jeszcze zaraz pokażę jeszcze jedno demo, dlatego że do tego w każdym razie tak, tutaj generuje nam się lista komponentów, to jest przykładowy komponent i teraz tutaj jest od razu przygotowanie do releasowania wielu paczek Learny. I teraz jeszcze chciałbym wam pokazać jedną rzecz, dlatego że mam to jako osobny. Aha, no to teraz tutaj się uśpiło. Dobrze, mamy. I teraz słuchajcie, to jest odrębny moduł, który jest prostszy i tylko jeszcze kilka sekund uwagi, bardzo proszę. Słuchajcie, tutaj mogę sobie na przykład dodać, to jest taki playground, do tego jak to mogę się tutaj tym bawić. Teraz na przykład jeżeli chciałem sobie zrobić stronę, która będzie miała menu i kilka kart, to sobie po prostu ją tutaj dodaję. Tutaj mogę sobie zrobić jakiś na przykład tutaj przycisk, żeby mi się pojawił jakiś modal. Tutaj dodam sobie jakiś modal array dialog. Teraz to są już interaktywne elementy i teraz jak wygląda finalnie wygenerowany kod. To jest po prostu coś takiego. Także tutaj widzimy, że mamy importowanie jakby interpretowanych w przeglądarce wszystkich bibliotek, które są wymagane. Tutaj jest lista komponentów, które są dostarczone w naszym jakby rozwiązaniu. To jest w tym poprzednim rozwiązaniu, które pokazywałem, to jest pocięte na osobne pliki. Tutaj to mamy wszystko inline'owo rozbite. I teraz słuchajcie, jeszcze wam pokażę ostatni fragment. Tutaj to mamy. I tutaj mamy pokazane, aha, to jest tak już zrobiło. I słuchajcie, tutaj po prostu mamy ten element pozycjonowany i jest tworzona nawigacja, karta, 1, 2, 3. I teraz takie coś możemy sobie uruchomić już w osobnym okienku i po prostu widzicie, mam normalnie aplikację, tutaj już nic nie mogę usunąć. Podwójny klik tutaj usuwa, a to już jest podgląd naszej aplikacji wygenerowanej z pliku tekstowego, który ma tylko aż tyle linii kodu, ale to odpowiednio ciąć na pliki i mamy przygotowany fundament repozytorium do tego, żeby równolegle programiści mogli pracować na tych już wszystkich gotowych, wstępnie pociętych plikach, które spełniają pełne wymogi specyfikacyjne naszego systemu, który robimy. Tyle chciałem pokazać.
No bell, no nothing. We don't have to ring the bell. That's wow. As promised, you always give the most informative and engaging talks. And once more, we need to thank you. Can we give a big hand to Artur once more?
Thank you very much. Thank you. And let's try.
I'm out of here. Nie wiem, co będzie.
So this is like after we've deserved it. So 3, 2, 1, go. So
Tak. Na pewno musi mieć takie coś. Na pewno.
No, I have a lot of shots.
Wow, fantastic. Listen, everyone, that was really great, and thank you so much.
Yes.
I'm fascinated by this whole setup over here. You guys were great tonight. You came in spite of the fantastic weather outside, and always it's a pleasure to spend some time with you. We want to remind you again that we have coming up Meetup number 93, and those tickets are already available. And also, in a moment, or not before long, we'll have tickets available for ConfrontJS 2023. So I don't have the slides with me right now. If you have any questions, come to our website at WarsawJS.com. Thank you, everybody, very much for your involvement. And I think that's it. We're out of time for tonight. Thank you very, very much. Dziękujemy bardzo serdecznie. Dziękujemy. Dziękujemy bardzo serdecznie.